Dishonesty is what foments, I'll leave you with this, is what foments violence. And you know what? When you say war of good and evil, show me one time where the people who are actually evil are willing to paint a war of good and evil.
Because you don't really care about Charlie Kirk. What you care is that this is a moment that you can use for clicks.
You can't ban the iron rods. The guns, the iron rods, Pierce, didn't do it. The tyrants did it.
This will go down in history as an act of left-wing political violence. Yes.
But I want people to know that wherever that microphone is, and whoever thinks about picking it up, you are in the crosshairs.
And yet here you are getting enraged about me exercising my right to free speech to ask you a few questions.
Piers, I'm not enraged. I'm not enraged at all.
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns.
Maybe if I would have used this megaphone to tell people it's real life out there and the left wants you dead, maybe Charlie would have had a fighting chance.
I'm not done talking to Piers. I didn't finish my statement. I say sometimes you have to do things to get people's attention so that they can click on something and to see if it is important or not, and they can make up their own decision about if they want to continue on with the content.
Got it. No, I get it. That's the whole point of clickbait.
And I do believe that I'm partially responsible for this. I failed people. I've had to do a lot of soul searching.
And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken.
I want those on the left to speak freely and to be able to host their events with minimal security as they do now for the rest of their lives. Just as surely, I want them to be deathly terrified of showing up and acting with the increasing violence as they have at our events.
That there's historically been more political violence coming from the right.
What you're seeing with Charlie Kirk is what got through.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so I've got a pretty good Piers Morgan uncensored reaction for you guys, and we're going to get into the debate. And we've got Steven Crowder and Joe Walsh. And Joe Walsh is doing nothing but trying to crab walk his way from everything he's been saying over the past week about Charlie Kirk. He's gone way left, he's gone far left, and he's gone insane left, as a matter of fact. And it's kind of crazy to watch this. And then on top of that, as a bonus, we've got the Don Lemon interview where Don Lemon loses his freaking mind, kind of, right? He kind of does, but in a very dispassionate way. You'll see what I'm talking about when we get to that point. It's very, very fascinating. He tries to attack Piers Morgan for asking questions, y'all. And what's fascinating about that is that they were discussing free speech. It's funny. And then I've got a bonus clip at the end of the video, so if you guys want to see that, y'all stick around for that. But you guys do me that favor. Smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here and you want to stay up to date with news and politics, because that's what we do. It's the best place for that. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. And think about clicking that join button. Sign up and become a member. Help this channel expand and grow. Because right now, folks, we need to stick together. We need to come together. We need to debate these issues and work everything out with words, not violence. So, you guys do all that. And let's just get into it.
Contract Joe Walsh joining the debate. Exactly what Charlie would encourage, I think, which is, Joe, you've just heard a very impassioned statement there from Steven Crowder. What's your response?
Oh, I get it, and I feel it, and I appreciate Steven Crowder expressing how he feels. I really do, and I don't know what my fight is. I don't have a fight with Steven Crowder. Steven, good to see you. There was a lot you said about me there in the intro. I don't remember because I'm getting older. I wish I'd written down some of it. I did my best for the past week, because I knew Charlie as well, not to say that this guy was a right wing. He came from a God-fearing gun Utah family. He was definitely right, like some on the left did. I didn't know who he was until we had the facts and the evidence. And it's clear, Piers and Steven, that this was a...
I had the facts and the evidence, and I told you he was on the left from the bullet engravings that we received from a leak, and you said we were wrong, and people on the left said we were wrong, and that matters because the shooter was still out there, and so was the Kirk family. I'm trying to save lives.
Steven,
you gonna save lives, Joe?
Maybe some people did. I don't know when I ever said you were wrong anywhere. When
you
this
said
first time I've talked to you, or even
we don't know. We know he's from a white family in Utah, and you retweeted people, and you went out and said this guy is not a left-wing extremist. He is. Okay, go ahead. You did say that,
my friend. From the moment Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I said, we don't know who did it. And once we found out who did it, we don't know why he did it. So let's all wait to figure out why he did it.
But we did
yesterday. Let me, Stephen.
And I remember you saying that he sold his soul to Trump before the body was cold, and criticizing his wife.
Stephen, let me finish, brother, please. And then we find out in no uncertain terms, by the way, Piers, which I think all of us could have guessed, this was a political assassination. This 22-year-old young man hated Charlie Kirk, and so he picked up that gun and he shot him. Clearly, and as you've said, Piers, it's clear that of late he had become radicalized with leftist ideology. Now we know it. This will go down in history as an act of left-wing political violence. Yes.
I mean, I would say, Stephen, that is an honest statement from Joe. But
it's not.
Yeah, but is it honest on your side, Stephen? Be honest. Is it honest to say there is no problem with violence on the political right? Because there has been historically a lot of violence associated with the far right in America. That, again, is just a demonstrable fact. To pretend there's never been any is to be disingenuous,
demonstrable fact by what? No, it's not to be disingenuous. It's absolutely correct. And I understand, because I've seen Joe and people of his ilk retweeting these out there. It either comes from Cato Institute or it comes from a recent Economist article. I can tell you how all of those numbers are wrong. Remember the man in Portland? Remember Aaron Danielson, who was shot dead point blank by an Antifa member? Michael Reinhold, who said, we got a Trump supporter, bang, bang, dead. That wasn't listed as political violence. Look at that chart. The year 2020, the summer of love, no political violence from the left. I could go through the methodology, and I have brilliant researchers who have. It is demonstrably untrue. No one is saying there is no violence on the right. What I am saying is that people on the right have to have armed security, flak jackets, an entire strategy when they go out, and those on the left don't. That is verifiably true. What is dishonest is to say we didn't know. You know what else wouldn't have been included in these crime stats? And anyone want to make this argument? You're talking to the wrong guy. The Covenant High School shooting. Audrey Hale. Cato said we included it because it was borderline, even though the police said they didn't think it was politically motivated. If not for the undercover journalism unit of a comedy show right here, no one would have known that motivation. We found it, we leaked it, we processed it, we verified it, and we were met with resistance and threats of lawsuits from the local police department, the mayor, and the FBI. They said it was a lie on the outset, just like they said the engravings on the bullet casings were a lie on the outset. The left lies. They label you fascist. They label you a totalitarian. And how do you deal with those people? Well, you don't do it at the ballot box. We position that the right holds has been presented as violence, including silence, by the way. I know there's a poster behind Joe Walsh right next to his No Kings poster. In other words, if you're pro-life, it's violence against women. If you're against men and women's sports, it's violence against trans, it's genocide, it's erasing them. If you're against Juneteenth as a holiday, it's violence. You're pro-First Amendment, violence because you're inciting violence. You're pro-Second Amendment, violence because you believe people should be able to commit gun violence. And then if we remain silent, that's also violence. And so people deal with the right with violence. Here's my challenge. Find me one example of a Charlie Kirk on the left, not an elected official. I'll allow any speaker, any comedian this century, one example of somebody who was murdered, assassinated, hemorrhaged out in front of his family in cold blood and gleefully celebrated thereafter. And the polls show that a majority, according to YouGov recently, of Democrats think it's somewhat too acceptable. 38%, 77% of Republicans said not acceptable at all.
Okay, let Joe
respond. What I'm saying is that Charlie Kirk was hunted. He was hunted. We are being hunted. And I don't want to see any more dead friends. Violence, absolutely. Lawful, ruthless, defensive violence.
Okay, Joe.
Pierce, I'll just be brief again. The data is pretty clear, and historically it's been pretty clear that there's political violence on the right and the left in this country for years. And I could argue, and I would argue, but I won't here, that there's historically been more political violence coming from the right. But suffice to say, I think you and I, Pierce, would agree, there's a history of, hey, Stephen, let me finish, man, please.
Please argue it. You can't just make a vague claim and not substantiate it.
Pierce, you and I would agree, for the sake of this conversation, that political violence is in fact a both sides problem. Stephen, you would acknowledge, I think, that there is political violence and there has been political violence on the right as well. So why don't we all just condemn it all? That's what we all should do.
We do condemn the political violence. We've always been for condemning the political violence. But see, the main difference here, right, and it's something we've been discussing for a while. You know, he goes over the summer of love. I was talking about that. I debunked an entire corporate press news article that was trying to say there's more political violence coming from the right. And with that one stat, we can debunk that from 2020. As a matter of fact, go back and check that video out. All the evidence is right there. But the difference between the right and the left political violence, right? Sure, you have lefties that condemn the political violence, and hats off to those people. Those are good people, by the way. And most of the right does as well. But see, the difference here is the left and the far left, they align, they coalesce, they come together. But the right and the far right do not, folks. We ostracize the far right, just like everybody else does. Nobody loves a white supremacist except for a white supremacist. But can you say the same thing about the far left? Can you get any Democrat to condemn the far left? No. What are they doing? They're trying to get out from underneath it by saying, you guys have most of the, as if general run-of-the-mill, you're generic conservative. I know that sounds like a weird term, but it is what it is. You're run-of-the-mill conservative, person, independent, whatever that may be. They're going to lump you in with that far right just because it's on the right, when everybody from the right all the way to the far left will condemn the far right, condemn the white supremacists, condemn the neo-Nazis, all of that. They get ostracized, they're irrelevant, nobody likes these people, and they don't have a voice, for crying out loud, because they've been ostracized since forever. Well, at least 2013. At least 2013, if not much longer than that. Well, I mean, what's happened to the KKK? They're just about all but extinct at this point. But the far left, the Antifa, oh, they still try to defend Antifa by saying, well, that's just an idea. Yeah, it's an ideology that many, many folks adhere to. And once again, like Steven Crowder said, you don't deal with fascists at the ballot box. And we know that. So what do they think? They think everybody that's not far left. As a matter of fact, this is a warning to lefties that if you step out of line with their anti-fascist ideology, you are a target as well. Just don't think because you're on the left that you're kind of close to where they're at that you won't be a target. You will if you fall outside of that line. They are not scared to target anybody. And this is why it was good for Donald Trump to label them a terrorist organization. As a matter of fact, I call it a terrorist disorganization. That's what they are. They're decentralized or whatever. So they don't have like a leader and all that other stuff, but they definitely have a banner that they fall under. And they are definitely a major, major threat. Much more of a threat than any sort of white supremacist nonsense that the FBI, whatever they want to say, oh, but that's the biggest threat of domestic terrorism in this country is the white supremacist. I've never even seen a white supremacist, for crying out loud, but we've seen video after video after video after video after video after video of anti-fascists. All of them. The Antifa members are very, very prevalent, folks. And that's the point. That's the difference. And that, once again, folks, is why we say those statistics are warped. And they're lying about the political violence in this country because these statistical institutions, they'll take instances like from prisons, for crying out loud, of white supremacists attacking other prison gangs and call that right-wing political violence. They absolutely do that. Go look up the methodology, like Steven Crowder was saying. Let's keep going.
Yeah,
Steve?
no, I don't agree with the premise. And I'm having to agree with a nebulous premise because you presented no facts. The very source that you cite, and by the way, I'll make all of mine publicly available. Hold on, I'm finishing now. Let's do it like grown-ups. You can cite your sources online. George Floyd riots, not included. Daryl Brooks, Waukesha, not included. Antifa, not included. Man shot dead for voting Trump, not included. Those numbers are not to be trusted, and neither is someone parroting it. I'll answer your question if you answer one of mine after. Go ahead, please.
Melissa Hortman, the Democratic state legislator in Minnesota 3 months ago, gunned down by an anti-abortion Trump supporter? Yes or no?
Wrong. How do I know? Because Vance Bolter, the man who did it, wrote in his letter that it had nothing to do with Trump or being pro-life. He blamed Tim Walz. And here's what you also don't see. Did you see anyone at the Hortman's funerals or vigils spitting on them or pantomiming being shot in the neck? Did you see anyone celebrating the death of them gleefully?
Yes.
Did you see so many professors doing so, showing children a snuff? Really? Point me to one.
Yes.
Point me to one person spitting at their vigil. Let me guess, you're going to go to Mike Lee?
Utah Senator
How do I predict
Mike
everything
Lee
you say all the time?
Attack.
How?
Donald Trump.
He didn't mock the attack.
But I
Yes,
would,
he
okay,
did.
let me jump in.
Anyone spit at the
Stephen,
vigil.
let me jump
Anyone
in.
celebrate the
Stephen,
murder.
let me give you an example.
Pierce, I don't.
Hang on.
Go ahead, Pierce.
Hang on. I would give an example
above it.
where the right behaved very badly, and that was over the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. I saw the gleeful responses after that from the right, the memes, the mockery, and so on. I thought that was very distasteful. Would you agree, Stephen?
If you want to argue an equivalency between a man getting
I'm not
hit with a
asking
hammer in his
equivalency.
underwear
I'm not saying
and a
equivalent.
man bleeding out in front of his child,
I'm not
go
saying
ahead.
they're equivocal. I'm just saying it's an example where I felt people on the right showed a complete lack of humanity towards the man who'd been attacked because he happened to be married to Nancy Pelosi, a political opponent. And so it's not like this never. It's not like this has never happened.
I don't agree. I don't think it's even remotely proportional. Let me ask a question here. This is why I'm giving this message, and this is why I hope people listen and protect their own. Joe Walsh, you're there. Since I answered your question, you're there, Utah, in the crowd. It's not a mouser. It's not a 30-6. But it's a man winding up a milkshake for Charlie Kirk. We don't know if it's strawberry, chocolate, vanilla, acid, or concrete. Do you stop him? Do you hurt him? That hesitation tells me that you are not amongst us. And cowards are dangerous to have in their ranks.
Stephen,
because it's not a hypothetical, it's happened.
Let me answer your question.
Do you stop him? Do you hurt him?
I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. I honestly, I don't.
Someone winding up a milkshake to launch at Charlie Kirk. You don't know if it's strawberry, chocolate, vanilla, acid, or concrete. You see him before anyone else does. Do you stop him and hurt him?
Yes. I certainly stop him. I do all I can to stop him. Yes.
Good. There's a start. That's what I'm advocating. Every single person out there, because we have been living with this shadow over us. And I know, look, here's the thing too, Joe. I understand your rhetoric. I understand where you're coming from. And I know that you met Charlie when he was 16, as I understand it, right? He was very, very young. And I understand that maybe you were somewhat of a mentor figure. It's because of the failure of Republicans like you that me and Charlie Kirk exist, who are willing to take back the territory that has been conceded, and we are willing to pay with our lives. We shouldn't have to be. Academia, media, the press, big tech shouldn't be dominated by the left exclusively all the time. Charlie Kirk shouldn't be out there alone, sitting in that chair, taking on all comers. He shouldn't be inspired by people like me, who are comedians. He should have been inspired by people like you. Instead, he was inspired to go the other way. Maybe that's why he said he sold his soul for Donald Trump before the body was cold. Still want to do the no true Scotsman, holier than thou thing?
And Stephen, I'm assuming you would do the same, correct? If somebody were throwing a chocolate milkshake at a left-wing speaker, correct?
No, the reason I bring it up is because we didn't. We didn't, and I've had them launched at me.
Would you, Stephen?
And the reason,
would you?
No, I didn't.
Would you?
And now I would. Now
would
I would.
You?
Because now I would. Yes. Have I answered your question? Yes. Now I would, and I advocate that everybody else do the same by any means necessary.
Stephen, common ground. You and I, two Americans, would both stop any politically violent attack on any public figure or speaker that we saw. You and I agree to that. And you and I hope, would both agree that we should condemn all political violence. End of story.
I am condemning, of course, all political violence. It is coming from one side, and the prescription is ruthless, aggressive, defensive, lawful violence on anyone who tries. If someone behaves in a way, for example, I've been sucker punched, I've been collar dragged, I've had attempts on my life, I have been doxxed. If anyone behaves in a way where if they behave that way at a town hall, at a restaurant, you with your family, would result in their severe ass beating, they deserve it at a political rally. They deserve it at a private function and a public speaking engagement. And the right has not been doing that because we've been taking the high road and the left has acted with impunity. That's why you see professors. It's not just that they're showing children a snuff film on repeat in order to create a generation of psychopaths, by the way. That's how you do it. It's that so many professors are doing it because they don't fear any ramifications. You can't find that on the right. Find me one example of a Charlie Kirk, not an elected official, a person who did nothing more than express his opinion and allow anyone else to do the same, who lost his life.
I also think in relation to that I saw Charlie Kirk's producer today getting quite emotional as he talked about the difference, for example, between the reaction to the murder of George Floyd, which I thought was despicable, and the murder of Charlie Kirk, which was despicable, is that one precipitated nationwide rioting and lawlessness as people were so enraged they took to the streets, and the other took to people going to church. You know,
also call me when Charlie Kirk died with a speed bump. He mugged a woman with his toddler in the house.
I thought it was an interesting.
George Floyd hurt people.
I thought it was an interesting observation, Joe, in terms of the difference.
And I appreciate that, Piers. Let me sneak in one more thing before Stephen goes off. Also, the assassination of Democratic Melissa Hortman in Minnesota by an anti-abortion Trump supporter, you didn't see violence after that. And the other thing you did not see after a, let me finish, Stephen, let me finish, brother.
The man who blamed Tim Walz. Truth matters. Dishonesty foments violence, Joe.
After a Democrat was assassinated in Minnesota, you also did not see the Democratic Party and the left declaring a war on the right, saying that they did it, the evildoers did it. This is a battle between good and evil. You didn't hear any of that when a Democrat was assassinated. We should condemn both, Piers, condemn anybody celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder. Condemn it. And we should also condemn anyone using Charlie Kirk's murder to declare some war on half of the country. And this is a battle between good and evil. Both of those reactions are dangerous and despicable.
Final word.
Now, I wonder why that is, Joe. I wonder why that is. We did not see proportional reactions after the Minnesota assassination and the Charlie Kirk assassination. Why is that? I wonder about that. Maybe because one was done in public in front of the man's family, the other one was done in private. But can we confirm the motivations of the assassin? Oh, no, we can't do that, can we? So they can't come out and blame it on the right, even though they're attempting to do that. They're attempting to do that, even though we know this guy was a psychopath. Look at his writings. Like Stephen said, his blame is all over the place. Was this guy a Republican? Yes, we'll admit that. Condemn it for sure. Condemn it for sure. But once again, in his writings, he still also blames Tim Walz for his position, for all kinds of nonsense. It was the ramblings of an utter madman. This guy over here with Charlie Kirk, he just did not like what Charlie Kirk had to say. And all Charlie Kirk did, Charlie Kirk was not a lawmaker. He just wanted to put that hand out and say, let's agreeably disagree. Agreeably disagree. That was a quote, as a matter of fact, to Van Jones. When he was wanting to get Van Jones to come onto his show, that was in his message to Van Jones. I just saw this a little while ago. I thought it was fascinating. Van Jones come out and started talking about this. And Van Jones, once again, a guy I totally disagree with on most everything, politically talking about, the major issues or whatever, come out and said that he didn't see this until like the other day, like a week after Charlie Kirk had sent it. Charlie Kirk sent that message the day before he was assassinated, and Van Jones didn't see it until much later and said that this is crazy that they took this man's life. All he wanted to do was talk to people, try to change people's mind, try to save them by bringing them to Jesus, for goodness sakes. And we all need a little bit of Jesus, folks. I think that's a part of the problem where this country is going. We've gotten away from our faith. We've gotten away from Jesus. We've gotten away from God. We need that in our life. We need a higher purpose to serve. Everybody needs a purpose in their life. You got a lot of Gen Z out there not knowing, a lot of millennials too, for crying out loud, which is scary, that don't know what their purpose is on this earth. Your purpose here is to live your life and serve your Lord and Savior, the man that died to save your soul, for crying out loud, whether you believe it or not, right? Once again, folks, you don't have to believe in it for it to be true. Most people don't believe it these days, it seems like, which is shocking, if you ask me. And they just can't see. How the hell can you believe in something where there's absolutely no evidence of it? I don't know. I can't give you that answer. I really can't. But we know historically, Jesus definitely lived. And we come to find out, most of everything that they tell in the Bible is factual, at least surrounding Jesus. We can look to history. We can look for evidence and find that, yes, Jesus lived. He did what they said he did in the Bible. Proof enough? Well, for some people it's not. But you need to have a little bit of faith. You need to have a little bit of faith. Everybody has that voice in their head that tells them right from wrong. Do you think that's just another entity, a separate soul in your body that's screaming at you? Or do you believe maybe that's something else? Maybe that is something else. I love it, folks. I love these debates, these arguments, these back and forths. Let's keep going.
Your reaction to Charlie Kirk's murder has stirred up a lot of anger on people on the right, particularly the clip we just heard where you talk about them not really caring about what happened to him and just reacting for clicks, crying for clicks and so on. I've interviewed quite a few people who are on the conservative right who knew Charlie Kirk well. I've not detected any of that myself. I do think that they were genuinely, utterly horrified by what happened. Do you not think that what you said there was insensitive?
No, I don't. I'm surprised because I was actually taking up for Charlie Kirk. I was taking up for him as someone who died a horrible, untimely death, and that there are people who are out here trying to capitalize off of his death. I don't think it's that much different than what his friend, who is his confirmed friend, Candace Owens, is saying about folks who are using it for political and for career expediency. There are those who are doing it, and there are those who are not. And if you are not, then I don't think anyone who's not doing it took any offense to it. There's an old saying here in America: a hit dog will holler. So the folks who I felt a certain kind of way and that I touched with that statement or those statements, then perhaps they should take a look at themselves. And by the way, as you know, Piers, you've been a victim of this. Many of us have been a victim to this. You take a clip, you do a short clip that is out of context, and then you make it into something that you want it to be rather than what I said. I don't see many people on the right at all of me running clips of me saying, I think, it was horrible what happened to Charlie Kirk. It should never have happened. I feel terrible for his wife and his kids. The kids are fatherless. She does not have a husband right now. I don't believe in political violence at all, whether it comes from the right or the left. No one played those clips. What they did was take someone like me that they can demonize. They feel that I'm on the left. As you know, Piers, we work together. I'm not on the left. I am not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not on the right either. I have my own mind, and I make up my mind, and I decide on issues based on what I believe in and based on facts, not a certain political ideology.
Well, look, I would say that you're clearly a lot more left than right, surely. I've never heard you espouse a conservative sentiment.
I am a lot more fact-based than I am anything. And so I don't believe you are free to think that I'm on the left. And perhaps in this time that we're in now with the Trump administration and with MAGA, perhaps facts are on the left. And if you deem that being on the left, then so be it. I don't see myself as being a political figure or a figure who's on the left.
It's interesting your characterization about facts, because I would argue that one of the reasons Trump got re-elected against all the odds, if you think about what happened after January 6th and everything else, the fact that he got re-elected, I always felt was three-pronged, right? One was immigration. I think Biden completely dropped the ball with immigration, particularly on the southern border. Secondly, the economy. And thirdly, the whole woke issue, the whole woke culture. And in particular, I would say, the issue, for example, of trans athletes in women's sport, which is, to me, if you're talking about facts, it is something that most Americans looked at and went, you know what, this is ridiculous. How can you deny biological reality? How can you go against scientific fact? So many would argue that it was the Democrats who lost track of facts and moved into a slightly strange, surreal place where they were trying to deny stuff which most Americans went, well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Look, I would not qualify it the way that you're qualifying it. I do believe that you have a point about the Democratic Party not understanding the moment that we're in, that America's in right now. As far as trans athletes, I think that was, although I understand to certain people it is a big deal, it is such a minute, small percentage of the population, and the trans athletes that are actually in schools and that are competing in in competitions, it's so minor. It affects so few Americans. I'm shocked that it was used to the level that it was in the election, and to great success. And so I must commend the Republicans on an issue that wasn't really an issue for most Americans, that they made it into something that helped to catapult this president into office. Now,
but you see, I've heard a lot of Democrats using that argument, and I've said to them, one of the most effective. I'm not saying you're a Democrat. I'm just saying I've heard a lot of Democrats say it, and my argument to them has been, but I don't. The New York Times reported that the they/them ad that Trump put out, which gathered momentum and then became used more and more and more, was one of the most effective.
I think it was extremely successful.
It was one of the most successful
modern
political adverts, because it cut to the point, I think, again, about common sense, that most Americans actually, maybe they don't have it in their top 5 things they care about. I would absolutely accept that. But when you actually ask them, do you think this is fair? Do you think it's right? Do you think it's equal? Do you think it's good that women's rights would be eroded? They actually then do get quite exercised about it.
Oh, I just love those responses right there. Now, to go back to the beginning of that clip, yes, people do that. They take clips out of context. I think Don Lemon is kind of right about that. They do that all over the place. Both sides does this. But it kind of sucks when it happens to you, doesn't it, Don? Kind of sucks when it happens to you. But to say that facts are left-wing? Are you freaking kidding me? And you're not left-wing? I'm more fact-based. No, I would push back against that and say you're more corporate press narrative-based and selective fact-based. They say that reality has a conservative bias, and hey, that's kind of true, because conservatives, or at least a lot of people that I see that are on the conservative side, they care about reality. Democrats seem to ignore reality, like Piers was saying right there, right? The Democratic Party is the one denying reality, affirming delusions, and all that other jazz nonsense. Oh, there's no crisis on the southern border. People can come into this country. They don't care about laws. They don't care about facts, right? It's funny because facts do not care about a political ideology, but political ideologies can care or not care about those facts. That's fascinating, don't you think? Selective fact caring is what I would say the Democrats do, because when it's convenient for them to use a fact to bludgeon you over the head, just like with this whole both sides nonsense, right? We know those facts are manipulated. We know that they take any instance of anything that happens. They put all these categories, right? Go look at the stats. Go look at the studies. Go look at all that nonsense. There's several different categories of right-wing violence, for goodness sakes. There's a category of other, for crying out loud. A category of other. They've got anti-government under right-wing. Anti-government. Do you realize what that means? That means that anything that Antifa does is going to be chalked up under right-wing violence. We know that's a very far left, ideologically driven terrorist organization. They don't chalk that down for left-wing. So, yeah, I would say Democrats do not care about facts unless it's politically convenient, something they can use as a bludgeon. And this is part of the problem, folks. This is why conservatives were tired of the lies, we're tired of the manipulations from the corporate press, and we're pushing back against this nonsense. We're tired of the delusion affirmation in this country. We're tired of the lack of common sense from these people. They just want to do what they want to do, and if you have a problem with it, you are evil. You are the enemy. You need to sit down and shut up. As a matter of fact, yeah, if you do shut up, your silence is violence. So what you must do is stand up and agree with them and stand and fight with them. What is that, folks? When you can't even be just left alone. When your silence is violence. What is that, folks? When they force you into their ideology through terroristic threats, violence, all of that. What is that? That is fascism, folks. Forcing you to do something through threats of violence. That's what that is. It's fascinating. Facts are left wing. Are you freaking kidding me? This dude is delusional. But this interview goes on and it devolves into something akin to, I just want to get out of there. Check this out.
I'm not here to argue over trans rights. I don't think it necessarily cut to the argument of common sense. I think they simply found an issue that they could capitalize on based on fear or, some perceived religious value or what have you. So I'm not going to sit here and demonize trans people, trans women or trans men, because I just don't think that is fair and that is productive in this moment. I'm not going to go back and litigate why Donald Trump won and on the issue of trans. We simply disagree on that. I think it affects so few people. I think it was something that was blown out of proportion. And while there may be some people who are affected by it, and if they are, I'm sorry that happens. But happens. But I just don't think that was an issue that focuses.
So when
on
you see, for
sense,
example, in the Paris Olympics, when you saw Imam Khalif, an Algerian boxer who had been banned from the World Championships for testing positive for male chromosomes, when you saw a young female Italian boxer quit after 40 seconds because she'd never been hit that hard and genuinely feared for her life, and Imam Khalif goes on to win gold medal at the Olympics, does that not ring an alarm bell for you, Don? I mean, do you not think that the reason we separate sexes in the Olympics is because males have an advantage? I mean, why would you not think that's important?
Do you want me to tell you the truth?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Piers, I'll tell you the truth about this. I heard about this story, but it's not something that I focus on. I'm not watching the Olympics like that. Maybe I'm different. I'm just not. I'm not that interested in watching everything. I like to watch the swimming. I like to watch the gymnasts. I'm not interested in boxing or any of that because I think it's a brutal sport anyway. So for me, it's just not that interesting. I'm sorry that anybody was hit that hard, but if you put yourself in the arena to be hit and someone hits you hard, then whose fault is that?
Well, you expect to be hit by other women, not men.
Well, I don't know that. I don't know who she expected to be hit by.
We call it violence.
I'm sure she saw. I'm sure whoever was in that competition understood who they were going into the ring with. And if you put yourself in that competition in the middle of a ring where punches are being thrown, then you can expect to get hit hard, whether it is a man or a woman. And that's all I have to say about that.
So you would have no objection to men fighting women in a boxing ring?
I did not say that. I just said that's all I have to say about that.
But isn't that the implication of what you're saying?
No, I've said in many different ways, that's all I have to say about that.
Right. But I'm just trying to clarify what you just said about the boxing. Are you saying it's okay for men to beat up women?
I think I've been very clear. That's all I have to say. I think I've been very clear to you. That's all I have to say about it.
Well, you have. I'm just a bit startled by
what if you don't understand.
No, I'm just startled by what I think I just heard, which is you seem to think it's okay for men to hit women in a boxing ring. Is that what you said? Clarify if you didn't.
I didn't say. I don't think it's okay for men to hit women anywhere.
So why would it be okay in a boxing ring?
Well, again, I didn't say it's okay in a boxing ring. I just said that's all I have to say about it. I don't think it's okay for men to hit women.
So
anywhere.
Then it sounds like you agree with me that biological men should not be competing against women in a boxing ring.
Piers, no matter how hard you try to, I told you, that's it.
It's not a gotcha question.
I'm not agreeing with you.
It's not a gotcha question.
I'm not saying it's a gotcha question. I'm just saying that I am done with this particular conversation. I don't think that it is productive. I've said what I said, and I'm not changing it. I don't agree with you. That's it.
But if you were doing your old show at CNN, you would have listened to your own response and gone, what exactly did he mean by that?
I probably would have said, okay, that's what you said, and then I would move on.
Okay, we'll move on.
No, Piers. What Don Lemon said, he said it's incumbent upon the woman that if she knows she is getting in the boxing ring with a man, she should expect to be knocked the F out. That's what he said. That's exactly what he said. She should know better. It's her own fault for getting into the ring with a man. Whether she knows it or not doesn't matter, because it's hard to tell these days sometimes with certain people, even though most people can kind of suss that out, if you know what I mean, right? Like, we can look at somebody and see if they have an Adam's apple, for crying out loud, and kind of tell. But that's what Don Lemon is saying right here, and this is why he doesn't want to continue talking about this, Piers. Why are you pressing the issue? Why are you being so toxic? He doesn't want to talk about this anymore. Let the man go on with his opinions, for crying out loud. Just because they're bad opinions and because they're divorced from reality, even though he says, I don't think men should be hitting women. What did he say before? It's her own fault, right? Right? That's what he said. This is nonsense. This is why these people don't want to talk about this, folks. He realized what he said right there, backdoored it with something totally different. It's fascinating, y'all, but this interview keeps going, so let's keep going.
But I don't believe in canceling people.
Right.
I think there's a lot of cancellation going on the right now, and I'm not comfortable with it.
Do you feel...
I wasn't comfortable with it on the left either.
Right. Do you feel you were a victim of cancel culture at CNN?
I probably, I don't think, I look at everything as an opportunity. Probably, yes. I'm sure that I was a victim of cancel culture, but I would say mostly on the right for cancel culture.
For those who don't know what I'm talking about, this is what led to you leaving CNN. Let's take a look at the clip.
She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying
decade.
I agree with that. So I think she has to be careful about saying that.
When you watch that, Don, I happened to be watching that live, and I was like, "Whoa, what did you just say?" Do you? I mean, if you had a do-over, would you say that again? I mean, what led you to say that?
Okay, Piers, let me just say this. I'm going to answer your question, but just so the audience knows, and I hope you don't cut this out. When I asked you what subjects you wanted to talk about, you know what you said to me? You said, I want to talk to you about freedom of speech in America and the response to Charlie Kirk's death.
Yeah.
Not once did you mention that we were going to talk about CNN or whatever. So, and had I known that, I probably wouldn't have accepted this interview. You have invited me on many times, and I tell you, Piers, I know you. I would come on your show, but I don't do panels. And so when you said I'm not going to be involved in a panel, I agreed to come on your show. But I thought you would also stick by the subjects that you told me that you were going to talk about.
Just to be clear,
rather than try to ambush me with something.
Just to be clear,
so,
you and I
yes.
haven't. Well, Don, just to be clear, you and I haven't had any conversation about your appearance here. You're talking about my team talking to you.
Yeah, no, and I saw you, Piers, in a restaurant, and I said, hey, Piers, good to see you.
Yeah.
I would come on your show, but I don't do panels.
Right.
And I
not
said
on
the
a
same
panel.
thing to your bookers.
There's only one
and
of
so
you,
when
Don.
I asked you, right. Okay, and so, yes, and I said that's why I agreed to do it. But when you asked me, or when your team asked me what subjects, and I asked them 2 or 3 times, I have the text messages, what do you want to cover?
Yeah.
Not once was CNN mentioned. So I don't appreciate being ambushed. But let me answer your question
Hang on
we're
one
here.
second. No, Don,
Okay?
Don, hang on 1 second. Let's just be crystal clear about what's just happened. You brought up the subject of cancel culture. I asked you, did you feel your departure from CNN was an example of that? And you answered the question. And I think it's perfectly reasonable.
And I answered the question.
Perfectly reasonable in that if you'd said to me, I don't want to talk about it, fine. No, but hang on, no, so sorry. You said what you're going to say. By the way, we don't.
Disingenuous.
Don, we don't edit.
I don't like arguing like this. I'm not going to get into an argument with you. Piers, I think that's completely disingenuous. And I think anyone watching this
What are you talking about?
And so if you will let me, if you will allow me, please
What are you
stop
talking
interrupting
about?
me, okay? Did you invite me here to interrupt me, or are you going to let me
I think you're
answer the
being a
question?
complete dick, if I'm honest with you.
Okay.
I do.
Well, that's very kind and respectful of you.
It wasn't intended to be kind or
I don't like the
respectful.
ad hominem attacks. I could respond in kind.
You can
but
say
I
what you
won't
like about me. I don't
think
care.
that I think that I'm above that. I'm not going to do that, Piers. That's not who I am.
I don't understand why you're playing the
attacks.
victim card when you
I don't do
yourself
personal attacks.
mentioned cancel culture.
Because Piers, Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Let me do this.
What are you going to
Here
do?
we
Read
go.
out my
If you
team's
want me to do
messages
this,
to you?
Piers, it should be embarrassing. Yeah, I can read out the team messages to you because I
What
just
are
think
you
it's
prepared to
completely
talk about,
unfair,
then, Don?
and you know that. I'm prepared to answer your question, and then I'm going to move on. I told you I'm prepared to talk about Charlie Kirk's death, the response to it, and cancel culture, and and freedom of the press,
So
and freedom of speech.
You
I'm
were prepared to talk about
that. But
cancel
let me just
culture,
answer,
or you weren't?
Unless you. No. I'm not prepared
you're
to
not
talk,
prepared to
I
talk
can
about
talk
cancel
culture. But that has, oh my God, Piers, could you stop interrupting me?
Not
are
really.
You
You're kind
to,
of exhausting
prove
me. It's
something?
ridiculous. Why would
All right,
you react
do you
this
want
way
to
to a
continue with
perfectly
this? Are you
normal?
gonna let me talk?
Obviously, if you mention cancel culture, obviously it's rational and logical that I would
gosh,
ask you
Piers, can
whether
you
you felt what
please-
happened to you at CNN was that. I played the clip,
Piers,
and then you throw a
I've given
hissy
you
fit.
a moment. Enough. I've given you your moment.
I don't
This
want
is
a
going to go
moment.
viral. So please,
I don't want a
enough.
moment,
Yes, you
Don.
do. Otherwise, you wouldn't do this. Otherwise, you would be a respectful journalist and host, and
I
you
don't
would
think
let
I'll
me
take
talk. But you
lectures
keep
on being a
jumping
respectful
in
journalist
because
from
you
you,
want a
Don.
moment. Oh my gosh, Piers.
I won't.
I can't even hear because there's a delay, and you keep talking. And what do you want me to do? Like rip the earpiece out in the mic and run off so you have a
No,
moment?
I don't care.
Are you
You
going
do
to let me
whatever you
answer the
like.
question? Are you just going to keep pillaring me with questions?
I don't know why you've gone on this
and cutting me
weird
off
rant.
before
I don't
answer?
understand any of it. Why have you done this weird reaction? I simply asked you about whether you felt your departure from CNN was, in your eyes, an example of cancel culture. I played the clip,
Piers,
and
you're
I then
embarrassing
said,
yourself,
I then
and
said,
I tried
when you
to-
watch it back, do you
Piers,
really understand what you were saying?
This is why I don't do this, but you're embarrassing yourself, Piers.
Actually, you might be embarrassing
and
yourself,
you are-
Don.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, you might be. Have you thought of that?
Okay.
You're a journalist. You don't want to talk about a story, a massive story that involved you?
Piers, can we move on? You can let me answer the question, and then we can talk about the things that you invited me on to
Why
talk
didn't you just
about.
answer the question to start with?
And we've gotten so far away from what you wanted me to answer that we're off into la la land. So let me say something about that. The clip that you played had nothing to do with me leaving CNN, okay? And unless you know something that I don't know about me leaving CNN, then you should tell me about it. It had nothing to do. I worked there for months after that, so that had nothing to do with it. And so, and I forget the other thing that you were asking me about in that clip. But
I asked you when
anyways,
you watched the
so
clip
let's
back,
move on.
if you could explain what was going through your mind, that's all.
Thank you. I think the key phrases in that clip, if you want to be honest, and I want you to listen to it, is that I'm not saying that I believe that. That's not according to me. What I was speaking for there is how society treats women. And someone like Nikki Haley should know if women have been discriminated against for centuries. She should be more careful than to say something that discriminates against older people. That's it. And so people took that out of context. No one puts in whenever they write about it that I said, I'm not saying that. I don't believe that. I said that very clearly there. So that is not the reason that I was let go from CNN. And so again, unless you know something, then go ahead.
Well,
and tell
as
me,
you
but
know, it
that's
was
not-
widely reported that was. So
that's not what I know.
So what was the reason?
Don't believe everything you read.
What was the reason?
I don't know.
You don't know.
No.
But it all happened after that incident. You know that.
Yeah. Well, Piers, everything happens after something. I don't understand what your point is.
Well, my point is, I think it's quite newsworthy. If you say it had nothing to do with that, then it'll raise the obvious question.
I don't think it's newsworthy, Piers. That was 3 years ago.
Right.
That's it's not newsworthy. News means something that's new. This isn't new.
Right.
That was 3 years ago. That's
Okay,
been
but it's
all
the first-
litigated.
it's
If
the
you want
first
to find
time
out
up-
about it, you are free to be able to read the interviews that I read. You are free to read the statement that perhaps your folks should pull up the statement when I left CNN, and that can explain to you what happened. So this is nothing new.
You
It's
just
all
told me
water
you've
under
no
the bridge.
idea why you
I have
were let
moved
go.
on. I'm doing something completely different, and so that's that.
Okay, so Piers is just highly misinformed right here, and he's pressing an issue for no apparent reason whatsoever. We all know that Don Lemon was let go almost right after that Vivek Ramaswamy interview where they were having a spat back and forth, and Don Lemon made some kind of racist comments toward Vivek Ramaswamy. It's very fascinating. A couple days later, maybe a week later, something like that. I don't remember quite exactly how many days it was, but he was let go right after that. It didn't have anything to do with that, because that's just common sense. It's a statement of fact. And Don Lemon even said that that's not what he is saying, that he got that information from somewhere else. He is just repeating what he Googled. For goodness sakes, I don't know why. Like, this is an example of Piers Morgan just being toxic, trying to get a viral moment. And he's already gotten several viral moments out of that entire segment. Just that segment itself, not to mention the previous segment where Steven Crowder was kind of going off right there and making very, very many good points on many, many different issues. But I've got a bonus clip for you guys I want to show you guys. It's very, very fascinating. Right after this, when they finally get off of that discussion right there, they go on to something else. And I just want to show you guys the stark difference in opinion where Piers Morgan is today versus 13 years ago, or 12 years ago. Check this out.
Move on and be adults. And so let's talk about, I think, something that would be important to you, and that is sensible gun legislation in the United States that would have perhaps prevented the untimely and sad death of Charlie Kirk. Can we do that?
How would it have prevented it happening?
Why don't you tell me? Because you are an expert on the subject, at least you were when you were working at CNN. You were very pro-gun legislation, and I believe, if correct me if I'm wrong, gun control.
Yeah, I don't understand how you stop a deranged young man who the investigators say has become radicalized to the left from taking his grandfather's old rifle and using it to fire one bullet that kills Charlie Kirk. If you can think of a legislation that would stop that.
I think you just answered that. You said your grandfather's old rifle.
Right.
So look, perhaps it should have been in a safer place. Perhaps
Would you know where it was?
There should be rules.
So Piers Morgan has finally seen the light of where the gun culture in this country is currently sitting and why we love our guns so much. It's not because of the gun violence. We dislike that, disavow that. We want to get rid of gun violence in this country. And, more people having guns prevents more violence. They don't tell you. They'll give you the gun deaths in this country and say, oh, gun violence is really, really bad, but they won't give you the self-defense uses of a gun in this country, and those numbers are much, much significantly, orders of magnitude higher than gun deaths, as a matter of fact. Defensive uses of a gun, they vary, folks, from year to year, but they go from 500,000 to 3 million defensive uses of a gun every year that saves lives. But they don't want you to know those statistics because they want to browbeat you with the 40 or 50 something thousand gun deaths that we have in this country every single year. That's what they want to do. They want to take your guns away. So maybe Piers Morgan's mind has changed because of this.
Anyone who's watched this show over the past few weeks knows I've taken a pretty strong stand on guns in America. It's not escaped the notice of supporters of gun rights, and it's led to a petition on the White House official website, no less. It's entitled, and I quote, "Deport British citizen Piers Morgan for attacking Second Amendment." Take a look. More than 104,000 people have signed it so far. And joining me now is one of the people behind the petition, Alex Jones. He's host of the Alex Jones Show. Welcome to you.
Piers, thanks for having me.
Why do you want to deport me?
Well, we did it as a way to bring attention to the fact that we have all of these foreigners and the Russian government, the official Chinese government. Mao said political power goes out of the barrel of a gun. He killed about 80 million people because he's the only guy that had the guns. So we did it to point out that this is globalism, and the mega banks that control the planet and brag that they've taken over, in Bloomberg, AP, Reuters, you name it, brag that they're going to get our guns as well. They've taken everybody's guns but the Swiss and the American people. And when they get our guns, they can have their world tyranny. While the government buys 1.6 billion bullets, armored vehicles, tanks, helicopters, Predator drones, armed, now in U.S. skies, being used to arrest people in North Dakota. The Second Amendment isn't there for duck hunting. It's there to protect us from tyrannical government and street thugs. Take the women in India. Your piece earlier on CNN I was watching during Anderson Cooper's show. didn't tell you that the women of India have signed giant petitions to get firearms because the police can't and won't protect them. The answer is, wait a minute, I have FBI crime statistics that come out a year late, 2011. 20+% crime drop in the last 9 years. Real violent crime, because more guns means less crime. Britain took the guns 15, 16 years ago, tripling of your overall violent crime. True, we have a higher gun violence level, but overall mugging, stabbings, deaths, those men that woman in India to death with an iron rod 4 feet long. You can't ban the iron rods. The guns, the iron rods, Piers, didn't do it. The tyrants did it. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand? That's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns. My family in the Texas Revolution against Santa Anna, my family was at the core on both sides starting that because Santa Anna came to take the guns at Gonzales, Texas. Pierce, don't try what your ancestors did before. Why don't you come to America? I'll take you out shooting. You can become an American and join the Republic.
You can't ban the iron rods. The globalists are going to take over and all the predator drones are going to kill everybody and turn the frogs gay, for crying out loud. Then the aliens are going to come down out of their mothership and blow everything up. I love it. I love it. That was a classic, by the way. I love that. Maybe Piers has changed his mind. Maybe so. We just don't know. But Piers seems to be a lot more moderate on the whole gun legislation issue these days. I just wanted to throw that in there because when I heard that come out of Piers' mouth, that how do we know that any legislation, like what legislation would have stopped that? Once again, folks, 90-something% of all mass shootings take place in gun-free zones. So, gun-free zones do not work. Every single person that commits one of these mass shootings is a single person that should not have had a gun. That it was illegal most of the time, right? The vast majority of those. Not all. But it was a person that was not legally able to purchase a firearm, that had their Second Amendment rights taken away. We have that ability under due process in this country. Red flag laws do not prevent these things. They help, but it's bass-ackwards, if you will. They have the take your rights away first, and then the due process to get it back. Right? It should be the other way around. It should be the due process first, because, once again, innocent until proven guilty, or at least that's how it's supposed to be, but we know that's not true. We don't put innocent people in jail. And that's not how our system works, is it? You get accused of a crime, they investigate, throw you in jail. But if you're arrested because a cop saw you do something, you go to jail, then you must prove your innocence. So, sure, some of the time it's innocent until proven guilty, but most of the time, with most crimes, it's guilty and you got to prove your innocence. Same way with the red flag laws. It's you're guilty first. They take your guns away first, and then you must prove your sanity. For crying out loud, and I don't think that's right. But I understand the idea behind these. It's just they have the process backwards. That's all that there is to that. Hey, look, I agree with that. Once again, you flip the process around, do the due process first, and then if we decide that this person should not have a gun, then we take the gun away. But once again, folks, this is why people advocate against red flag laws. It's not because they want more gun violence. No, that's not the case. It's because due process should always come before the rights being revoked. For crying out loud. I love this. That's a classic clip, y'all. Like, 1776 will happen again. We will commence a blast. It's fascinating. I love Alex Jones, right? I don't really watch Alex Jones. I used to watch him a long time ago. He kind of went off the rails a little bit, but, you know, there's a funny meme out there that Alex Jones was right. Prove me wrong, right? There's a shirt. As a matter of fact, Steven Crowder has that shirt. You can go to Crowder shop or whatever and buy it, or wherever you get his merchandise from. I've seen him wear that shirt. Alex Jones was right. Prove me wrong. It's funny because Alex Jones has predicted a lot of things just by reading the news, folks. And that's what I do. I read a lot of news these days because of that. You know, Alex Jones predicted the invasion of Ukraine in 2022 just by reading the news. We all saw it coming. We all knew. We all saw the buildup. Right? That's why we feel that Biden dropped the ball on that, and that Trump would not have allowed that to happen. Trump would have intervened. He would have went and had negotiations with Putin, said, hey, don't do this, blah, 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 blah. They would have went and talked, but Biden absolutely did not do that. And look, here I go off on some tangent talking about something totally different. But let's get back to that, because what gun legislation would prevent most of these mass shootings? There aren't any. People procure these weapons illegally in most cases. They shouldn't have it, and then they go and commit some sort of violence with that weapon. Right? It's not the weapon. Once again, like he said, you can't ban the iron rods. You can't ban the baseball bats. We don't blame the truck when somebody runs over a crowd of people. We don't go out there and admonish Ford. Why do these gun companies get sued whenever there's a mass shooting? Then they have to spend millions of dollars defending themselves in court for no apparent reason except some deranged lunatic thought that the gun shot itself and targeted itself. They ignore the bad guy, and that's the problem with Democrats, folks. They want to ignore the bad people in this country. They don't believe that evil people exist, even though that they engage in evil acts. These people will engage in evil just for the sake of being evil. I just had a comment in between the videos as I was recording this video. Said about my video I done yesterday, the Piers Morgan Uncensored with Destiny. Said Destiny destroyed those people and Charlie Kirk's burning in hell right now. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on? So says a lunatic. These people are crazy, folks, and they're all over the place. They're nut jobs. And I don't know how I don't know how our culture got to that point. I don't know why. Why did we go in this direction? Why did we allow Democrats to try to progress society down this specific path of degeneracy? That's what it is, folks. They want to be allowed to do things that they shouldn't do. That's what I see from the policy platform from the Democratic Party. Abortions, transy kids, open borders, soft on crime, destruction of the nuclear family. All of those things destroy societies, folks. And we have allowed those things to take place because of a vocal minority that screams very, very loud. And they push violence, folks. They threaten you, they get in your face, and they scream. This is why we say most of the political violence is coming from the left. It's because it is. I don't care about statistics, right? They don't chalk up statistics when a leftist gets into your face and threatens to kill you, to take your life. They don't put that in the stats. And that happens much more often than you think. Much more often. That's the political violence in this country. When these people lose their minds and threaten to take your life, they threaten to kill you, saying you should burn in hell for not wanting abortions. You should burn in hell because you're trying to genocide trans people. That's not true. None of that is true. We want to help these people. We want to save lives. Pro-life. Think about that for a second. Not sterilizing these kids. Not allowing, like, as an adult, do what you want. I don't care at this point. Do what you want. Just don't go after the kids. We draw the line at the children. Because we don't want them to cross that line, become delusional. We want to save these kids. We must save and conserve our society, folks. It's what we must do. And if we must stand in the face of evil and push back and browbeat that evil back until it no longer commits that evil, we will do what we must do, folks. We must stand together in Christ against the enemy, folks. We know that. We know this is what the Bible says. Not calling for political violence. I'm not calling even for what Steven Crowder He calls defense, self-defense violence. Well, if that's what it is, that's what it is. We all have that right to defend ourselves. But I would call for the other side to tone it down. That's what I call for. And they say we're not trying to do that? BS. But they say we're not trying to do that because we continue to advocate for the things that we advocate for. And then they want to call that turning the political violence up, turning the temperature up. I say that. By just advocating for what we believe in. Nonsense, folks. We advocate for you guys to stop getting in our face and screaming at us and smearing us with all these pejoratives. Stop. Let's have dialogue. Let's discuss these things. We can agree to disagree agreeably, for goodness sakes, and go about our business amicably. That's what we can do. But that's not what we're seeing from the other side, folks. It's nonsense, but that's all I got. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. And if you could, mull it over for me if you don't mind. Think about clicking that join button. Sign up and become a member. Help this channel, help this movement grow and expand and propagate out into the ether, y'all. Y'all do all that for me. And you guys remember out there that God is always with us. Whether you know him or not, he's there. And he loves each and every one of you. So you guys remember that. Y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.